given this is our biggest issue, I think we have to get to the bottom of it now. It's happened too many times for us.
The mistake for the first goal was Mendy's pass. You're kind of thinking, if you were on the edge of their box, you wouldn't attempt to pass like that across the edge of their box, but you'll do it across the edge of ours. I don't look at a single partnership that we currently have where week in, week out, that partnership works. I don't even look at two individuals at the moment where I go, that's really working.
This was the game that I just said, I've got it wrong. Get Marino back up there. He's a killer. And he's probably the most clinical finisher in the team.
Where are you on the booing after the game? Because this was Arsenal's first Premier League defeat at the Emirates since last May.
For me, I think it was less we're not content, we're more entitled than this, we want better and you're not doing well enough. I think it was more of a shake, come on Arsenal. Do you know what's in front of you? And this is what you've served up the last 3 games.
It's the fear of it being Unai Emery that makes it worse for me.
I really don't think City will run a run. It's something I'm really confident of. Our players need to have that confidence of, we are a better team.
Hey everybody, I'm Harry Symeou and welcome back to Inside Gooners, bringing you all the latest news and reaction when it comes to the mighty Arsenal. Joining me this week are broadcasters James Bayliss and Rory talks football. Guys, it's been a difficult few hours, I would argue, since Arsenal's defeat, first home defeat of the season. But I'll start with you, Rory. It feels a little bit deeper than that. I don't want to be the guy that goes over the top, but we do have to delve into this one. We do have to break this one down. Yeah. For me, it feels a bit deeper. How have you kind of been processing it?
Yeah, it's a wobble. It is that wasn't just a one-off bad game. That followed a couple of difficult games in the Premier League where we've seen similar problems to the point where you're like, it is a wobble and we do need to course correct. I think to an extent we were perhaps unfortunate to actually come away with a defeat. It was a poor performance, but 9 times out of 10 I don't actually think you lose that game. You can see 2 worldies, you kind of have to hold your hands up and say fair enough. But no, there is reason for Arsenal fans to be anxious, and I do think some fans have been accused of overreacting, and maybe some have, but I think a lot of the reaction has been fairly justified.
James, what's your sort of opening thoughts on what happened on Sunday and how it all unfolded?
I agree with everything you've said, that I think it is justified to a degree that we're feeling a bit tense. And I think you're right, it feels a bit deeper than just, all right, you had a bad day, you lost to 2 worldies and a mistake and you keep it moving. There feels something a little bit deeper than that because, I know it's an old cliche, but there's ways to lose a game of football. You're knocking on the door, you're forcing Lemons into loads of saves. All the field tilt possession, the shots, all that's in your favour, and you look at it and you go, how did we lose that game? It wasn't like that. It was a game that had, for me, a tension in every pass, loads of heavy touches, and actually United weren't really on us. It didn't feel like for that first 30 minutes they were really aggressive and stopping us playing. It felt like a lot of unintentional self-sabotage. A lot of our own errors were causing United to feel themselves back into the game to a point where we never gained control of it. So yeah, I think a lot of the tension that Arsenal fans are feeling is justified because this isn't just one bad game or a run of 3 Premier League games. It's 4 years of having a really good side, capable of winning trophies, and we're going, are those the bad habits that we saw before? And I think that's where we're worried.
What do you put it down to then? Because clearly the overarching issue is our ability to score goals, right? Our ability to break teams down. That's obviously the biggest problem that we've experienced at Arsenal over the last few years because there's been patches in previous seasons where we've been going through exactly the same thing. Is it coaching? Is it the individuals? Is it a bit of both? What do you put it down to, Rory? Because I think given this is our biggest issue, I think we have to get to the bottom of it now. It's happened too many times for us to just go, it will put itself right. Mm-hmm. It needs rectifying.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is psychological with the fans and the players in terms of we have been here. I would argue we've seen better Arsenal sides over the last couple of years than the current one that haven't got it over the line. And albeit I think this is a very different season in terms of the competition, and that's why we're where we are. But also a lot of games this season haven't been easy. Even where we have been winning games, other than like Spurs and Villa, it's been late winners against Wolves at home, games like that where even though you come out with a win, it's unsettling for the fan base. And so when you're going into that week after week after week and then you stop getting the wins as well, and we can all see the problems in terms of attacking and creating opportunities, and I don't think any of us know what the solution is in terms of, I don't know what our best attack is right now. I don't think Arteta knows what our best attack is right now. I just think all of these things are adding up a little bit. And look, ultimately, it's on the players to kind of break the cycle of anxiousness around the stadium and around the team.
Yeah, agreed.
James, in terms of your view, we don't know what the solution is. I give you that. I think I know what some of the problems are, though.
Yeah.
At least to my mind. What would you say are some of the issues right now?
Well, sorry for a very vague answer that I don't think is going to bring any real insight, but I think it is a bit the manager. I think it is a bit the individuals. I think it is a bit the cohesion of the team. There's one clip, and I know sometimes you can overanalyze a clip and go, oh, that defines a player, but I really felt that this did. There's a moment where I think Timber has the ball and he plays it into Ødegaard, and he's received it in between two United players, and rather than just turning and running into the open space, he sort of drops a shoulder, turns back inside and faces forward again. It's little moments where I'm thinking, that's the bit. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the pass through. And if I'm Arteta, I'm not Arteta. I'll never be Arteta. But I imagine Arteta might look at that and go, why didn't you just turn into the open space and you've cut through that first line of press? And is that a manager fault? Because Ødegaard's in the right place, and that kind of comes on him at some point to say, take the initiative, turn to where there's danger and make something happen. But then I do look at Arteta, again, he's forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. But I can't help but feel like he doesn't platform the players best. I think Eze is a left pocket player, not a right pocket player, who should be drifting into that space, not sitting in it. I think Ødegaard is an 8 who should be running a game of football, not pulling out wide into areas because he's trying to get out the block. I don't think Saka should be out on the touchline. I want him central. I don't think Gyökeres should be trying to hold up the ball. I want him running the channels every time and waiting for that ball into the box. I don't want Timber and Nkapie high in the pockets. I want them in build-up and in rest defence, waiting to win possession back. Again, that's just some players that I look at and I think, are we really putting them in the right areas of the pitch sometimes? I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, on that, I think there's a lot in there that you've just said that I completely agree with. I think, first of all, I think it starts deeper in the team. I think it's really easy to look at the forwards and go, you're the issue, right? But I think it starts deeper in the team. I think the midfield at the moment is imbalanced.
Yeah.
I think there's too many rotations in our midfield, whether it's Rice going forward or Ødegaard dropping deep or Zubimendi stepping forward. It's all too complex for me. And that is, I think, Mikel Arteta overthinking it. I think he's so desperate to get us over the line. And obviously the core principles of his game are this defensive solidity and control, that he's now tried to think almost too outside of the box to try and solve our attacking problems. Have Ødegaard high up the pitch where he needs to be, where he can impact the game. Have Zubimendi at the base dictating. Have Rice box to box. I think that's where it stems from. Then you look further up the pitch and, okay, we're struggling to free up our wingers of the doubling up that we face pretty much every week. But the answer to that is not to have Jurriën Timber playing like a centre forward. It's not to have Nkapie or Calafiori doing that. You've got to find other ways of platforming, as you put it, James, your best players. And I think what he's done is where he's sort of drilled certain things into these players to give them the structure, the defensive solidity, all of which is great. He's taken something else away inadvertently. I don't think he's done it deliberately. I don't think it's what he wants, but I think he's taken that autonomy away from players. So in that instance that you've mentioned there with Ødegaard, Ødegaard in the past might have turned and gone, let my instinct take over here and I'm going to do what I should do. Whereas because there's this emphasis on control, you know, making sure we look after the ball, protecting it, not leaving ourselves vulnerable to the transition, your mindset changes now. And now you're second guessing yourself and you're thinking about things too much. And I think that's a consequence of the wider, broader approach. So I want to look at the players because they're the individuals that can make the difference. But I do think Arteta's created a problem for himself, not deliberately, by the way. But it is a problem that exists.
That's why I agree with the cautiousness side. I don't think he's directly drilling them to be that cautious. And like you said, he may look at Ødegaard and say, well, why didn't you turn through that gap? But equally, we've seen, as an example, Eze, at least to us, seemingly got heavily punished for the mistake he made against Villa away, where after that he struggled. Nwaneri definitely struggled with the kind of physical side of the midfield role, tracking back, duels. He's kind of been phased out of the squad almost until he can come back stronger. And so it's like, maybe he's not drilling them to do these things and be cautious, but when they try things and they don't come off, or they do switch off, they get so heavily punished that it's like, okay, that's the main focus is don't lose the ball. And the issue is, you know, the mistake for the first goal, Zubimendi's pass, you're kind of thinking, if you were on the edge of their box, you wouldn't attempt to pass like that across the
Yeah.
edge of their box, but you'll do it across the edge of ours, and it's like you're taking risks in the wrong areas.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, it's difficult. And the other thing I think we're struggling with the attack, and I don't look at a single partnership that we currently have where week in, week out, I'm like, that partnership works.
Yeah.
Like it used to be White, Ødegaard, Saka. You had 3 of them. Where I don't even look at 2 individuals at the moment where I go, that's really working. Calafiori and Trossard, I think, had a good relationship this season. Gyökeres hasn't built a good relationship with anyone, truthfully. We don't really see much of Jesus and Martinelli together, who in the past had a great one. But yeah, again, that's another thing where I'm like, it's great having this massive depth that we've got, but is all of that rotation, is the fact that in the opening sort of 10, 15 games of the season, we saw 10, 12 different attacking lineups, has that prevented some of the sort of cohesion that you need?
I think if you've got a system like and listen, we're talking to a degree about the system overpowering the individuality of our players, right?
Yeah.
But the positive side of having a really clear and defined system is that you can rotate without asking everybody to be a jack of all trades all the time. So you mentioned Nwaneri, we'll talk about him a little bit later on, but this is an example of a player that in that midfield 3 as the furthest one forward, he's fine. But if you're asking them to constantly rotate, again, overcomplicating things, you don't want him at the base of your midfield. You don't want him in an 8 position. So what he's almost doing is he's sort of platforming these players that have that versatility, but then we're losing that attacking edge. We're losing that attacking edge because our most devastating players in the final third are not platformed to do what they should be doing. And James, I want to get your take on this because one of my big frustrations with Mikel at the weekend was the 4-man substitution at once.
Yeah.
I don't know why he thought that would work. I guess he was probably frustrated with the performance. He might have looked at it and gone, I could hook 7 of you if I had the opportunity.
Yeah.
But that for me was was it a sign of panic for you?
Or a message? I think it could be a bit of both. I think there was a degree of, oh my word, we're 2-1 down. We're not really creating chances. Will I have to mix this up quickly? And I get it. Marino can score a goal. He literally did. Eze can produce a moment of magic. Madueke wasn't one of the 4, was he?
No,
he came on after. That's actually the sub I had the most issue with because Saka was starting to make things happen, like the shot at the near post that led to the corner. You should have put Madueke or Martinelli on the left, basically. So that was actually my biggest concern. I didn't mind the 4 subs because I was screaming at the TV. I was so furious with the performance that I actually didn't mind Arteta going, I'm going to send a message to you, and that includes the captain. You're all coming off. So maybe with a calmer head, from a tactical perspective, not a great idea because you can have Ødegaard and Eze together, maybe see if they can get control of the midfield. You can maybe hope that someone like Ødegaard, even though he's not playing well, might pull out that moment of magic with a pass. I get why you wouldn't do too many at once, but I didn't mind the message he was sending, if I'm really honest. But it didn't work. Yeah, but I didn't mind it.
What did you make of it, Rory?
Yeah, I do. It was definitely a message. I think he took off. I think the plan was always that Hincapié would have gone up to 60, so that maybe it would have otherwise been a triple sub. But I do think Zubimendi had a really poor game, was losing his duels. Ødegaard was losing his duels. And I honestly think as much as we needed a goal, Arteta still looks at those things and said, if we're going to get control of the game to build a platform to start attacking again, we need to regain control of that midfield.
Yeah.
And this is an issue, I think, with Ødegaard at the moment, who I think is in real danger of losing his place in the starting lineup. That's back-to-back Premier League games that he's been taken off before the hour mark when we need a goal. Is that if you're not offering what we need from a creative perspective and you're losing a lot of those duels and you look a little bit soft in midfield at the moment, then it's going to have to be someone else. And so the one probably that just didn't work and maybe didn't need to happen at that time was Gyökeres, because we started the game with Jesus knowing that we needed to break United down and how difficult that would be. And at that point we were losing again, so we were still in that position. Bringing on Gyökeres at that point, I mean, truthfully, he didn't bring anything to the table. Could Jesus have played a full 90? Maybe not. But yeah, the issue always with doing a quadruple sub is that it's just disarray. It felt like a bit of it feels like a panic. And if the fans feel it and the players going, oh wow, he is fuming. Mm-hmm. But then again, we came out for the second half and we looked really poor. So it's that for me, it's not so much that the players that came off deserve to stay on. They absolutely didn't. Yeah. But sometimes when you change too much too quickly, you're almost resetting and needing a 10-15 minute period now for those players to come on and find their bearings in the game. And I didn't feel at that point
we had that time.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I think I felt like it needed to be a gradual transition towards something different, and maybe he acted emotionally there and went, no, these guys are not performing, I need to get them off. I wanted to ask you a lot about the centre forward position. You mentioned that Gyökeres came on, offered very little. I completely agree with that. Jesus did fade after the first 25 minutes, half an hour, it's fair to say. Yep. Kai Havertz wasn't in the squad. Why do we seem to be afraid now of putting Mikel Merino back up there? Given that when he's played that role, James, he's done a really good job. Is it almost embarrassing to the others if he plays there? Is that what it is?
This was the game that I just said, I've got it wrong. Get Merino back up there. And it's not... Because I think some people talk about it as like, oh, Merino up front because he scores goals. No, what I loved about it was him and Eze almost played as like 2 10s. Yeah. And in the game against Bayern, against Spurs, they were alternating. But at the same time, you can rely on Merino in front of goal. I actually think from a hold-up perspective, considering he's a midfielder and he's 6'2", I actually think he leaves a lot to be desired. I don't look him, bullying defenders, playing wall passes or being a wall pass for someone and linking play. But I do see him in front of goal. He's a killer. And he's probably the most clinical finisher in the team. He more often than not is in the right place for the right moments. He has played the big nights, Bayern, Tottenham, Real Madrid, and led the line brilliantly. He's got a nice pass. He can drop into midfield. He can execute the press. So if you're not getting the striker things that you want from Gyökeres and Jesus and Havertz isn't fit, then I'd go with the partnership. And I mean it as a partnership. You said we haven't really had one, and I agree. But I think Eze and Merino for that patch of games, there was something there. Now, look, then there's games like Sunderland where for the first half, we didn't have an outlet. We struggled to sort of gain any territory. And I put that down to not having a more natural 9 up front. But then second half, we got control of it and we found the goals without needing a Gyökeres or a Jesus. So that's it. I apologise to all because I've been saying I don't want to see Marino up front, not when we've got these strikers available. But I think it's needs must now, and our best performances have come with him up top.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. There was some comments that Mikel Arteta made after the game about the fans. Obviously, there was booing after the game. He said, we need them when we don't win. When we win, it's easy. I didn't take that as a jibe at the fans, but looking at some of the reaction, I think some people did take that as Mikel Arteta sort of having a bit of a go back at some of the supporters that maybe voiced that discontent. Let's start with the booing. Rory, where are you on the booing after the game? Because this was Arsenal's first Premier League defeat at the Emirates since last May.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's the first time I've watched us lose there since May, and so it's pretty cheeky to boo after a result. And I get it, and I'll never tell people that have paid their hard-earned money how they should behave. But for me, booing is more of like a conscious decision than groaning when a misplaced pass. That's the kind of natural. You just booing is kind of you're thinking about it. And look, I'm not a player. If I was a player, and so far this season we're 4 points clear, even after the defeat, we're 4 points clear at the top of the table, we're top of the Champions League, we're halfway into the Carabao Cup final, we're in the FA Cup. Getting booed off, I'd be like, give me a break, like a little bit, like, you know, we're doing all right. So that, yeah, I don't agree with booing. The wider kind of anxiousness of fans, which I've also seen be spoken about online, that, you know, we shouldn't be groaning about misplaced passes and stuff like that. I get it, and it's a natural reaction. And as fans, sport, even beyond football, works because as fans we're emotional, and our emotional reactions, we celebrate when a goal goes in, you know, we groan for a misplaced pass. You can't help that, you can't avoid it, and it is a bit of a cycle at the moment of nervous performances are breeding nervous fans, which are breeding a nervous atmosphere, which breeds nervous performances. But the people that have to fix that are the players. They're the elite sportsmen, paid a huge amount of money. Yeah. They're meant to have the mentality and the mindset to ignore that. And so, yeah, in that perspective, I don't blame the fans at all. And also, I think fans leaving, going into injury time, that's something that just winds me up beyond belief. When you look at the amount of people trying to get tickets for the games, I'm like, it was absolutely devastating, Cunha's goal going in, but it's going to be such a low points tally season. Every point matters. Stick around for the final 7 minutes, try and get an equaliser. Like, come on.
If I could add to that on the booing, I actually agree with everything you said, but the one thing I would add is, I think for me, it kind of also depends on how you interpret the booing, and I wonder how the players might. I'm not sure it was, from those who did boo, and let me also, I wouldn't boo. I've also found it quite a strange sound to make, like to sort of, like, to show my discontent. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but for me, I think it was less we're not content, we're more entitled than this, we want better and you're not doing well enough. I think it was more of a shake, like a come on Arsenal. Like, it's not a boo of like, you've let us down. It's do you know what's in front of you? And this is what you've served up the last 3 games. And the other thing I'd say about the fans is, I don't think our reactions as the Emirates Stadium, it's kind of based on results. I don't think we're swayed like that. I've been at the Emirates where a North London derby would go 2-1 down, and the crowd really starts to get loud and get behind the team because they acknowledge that for the first 30 minutes of that game, we were having shots, we were forcing saves, we were all over the opposition. So it's, okay, something's gone wrong, but come on, let's go. So I think to a degree, it's also the players feeding off the tension, nervousness, but also the style of football they're seeing. Yeah. There's a degree of, hold on, like, we're trying to give you a bit of a shot in the arm here. And I don't mind that. I don't think booing is the way to do it necessarily, but that's how I interpreted the fans' discontent.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think that the annoying thing for me is the people leaving early.
Yeah,
I can't take that. And it's every game. It's not just on Sunday. It happens all the time. It's very frustrating. I kind of have more sympathy if it's like coming up to 10 p.m. on a Monday night and you've got to travel 2 hours away. I kind of have more sympathy than I would in a situation like the game at the weekend, right? But even still, I think you've made that effort to go there, be there till the end and be there with your team. The point on the style of football, I think, is hugely important. Arsene Wenger said something on beIN Sports over the course of the last few days. He said, the people, you can't fool them. They know what they're watching. They pay their hard-earned money. They come. They know what they're watching. And if they're not satisfied with it, they're entitled to sort of voice that frustration. And I think it is about the style. I think it is about the fact that we're not peppering teams. It is about the fact that we've gone and invested in all this forward talent. And if we're being honest about it, most of the players that we've brought in have not actually raised the level of the team. Have they raised the level of the squad in terms of what we can turn to when we've got problems? But is the team that much better? Like, Eza's not raised the bar for Arsenal. Neither has Gyökeres. Neither has Madueke. Zubimendi, I think, is a good player in his own right. And I know we can have the Thomas Partey discussion. We won't. But Thomas Partey was not a far inferior player to Martin Zubimendi, in my opinion. So actually, we've done all this to bolster the squad, but have we actually raised the top level? I think people are starting to feel that with the fact that you're bringing these players off the bench and nothing's changing.
Yeah.
The style of football at the moment is the sort of style where you need to be winning to play that style and get away with it.
Yeah, 100%.
It is that style. There is undoubtedly, an issue with a lack of... And the thing is, we come out of a lot of games with a high XG, but there's a type of XG that fans enjoy and a type that isn't as entertaining. And so when a lot of that XG is coming from corners, look, we celebrate when we get a corner, which is fun, but ultimately there is like a definite element of, I'm not being as entertained as I have been in previous seasons. And so that's fine if we're winning. But if we've gone 3 Premier League games without a win, I'm beginning to get a bit frustrated.
Yeah, and I'm struggling with the whole XG thing because, like, every week people roll out these numbers. Like, this week it was, look how low Manchester United's XG was, but they scored 3 goals. Look how high Arsenal's was. Sorry, when we take a corner, okay, we put the ball right underneath the crossbar. That in itself increases your XG because of your proximity to the goal. Yep. When you take a long throw in that meets the edge of the 6-yard box, that increases your XG. For me, it's a flawed metric, and I can't have it that every time we come away from a game saying we've not performed, we haven't created, people go, yeah, but look at the XG. Do you know how the XG is put together? Do you know how it's compiled? Because if you do, you'll realise that it's a misleading stat at times.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think there's a bit of a sense of like, who I don't know what Arteta's philosophy and thinking is, but I have this feeling that they think if the numbers are on your side across 38 games, you're going to win more games, 100%. You're going to pick up more points, you're going to get there. I think it's so interesting with the style of football because, to be fair, I wasn't complaining about the style against Tottenham. I wasn't complaining about the style against Bayern Munich. I think for a lot of the season we played really good football. I thought the second half against Sunderland from 1-0 down was brilliant. I thought we played some really good stuff. I think... I don't really agree with this idea we play bad football, but I do think there's a sense of a lack of urgency when we are chasing a game and almost a sense of we're not willing to do everything to win it. And so I wonder, again, talking about the fans, whether they feel that, like, why should we chant and scream louder and really kind of try and force you over the line where it doesn't look like on the pitch you're running and doing the things that makes us feel like you're trying to force it over the line. So I think it's just a bit of a cycle, really. I think this Arsenal team under Arteta can play good football. And I also think they can find solutions. 23-24, the first half wasn't brilliant, but then that second half was amazing when he tweaked things a little bit with Kai Havertz up front and stuff. I wonder what Arteta's got up his sleeve, because I don't think he'll be happy with what he's seeing. I just don't think he also necessarily prioritises attacking football. I don't think that'll ever be like the biggest thing for him. I think it will be shape. I think it will be off the ball. I think it will be discipline. I think it will be the margins. And then if you can get control of a game and express yourself, then you go do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely think it's the numbers. And I also think because of the nervousness that's around now, I even remember against Villa at home, and it's anecdotal because it was just one person that was sat behind me, but every time Ødegaard played the ball backwards, which he does a lot, turns out plays it backwards, the guy behind me, stop passing it backwards, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of times he tried to play a ball over into Trossard, and the first 2 times it failed. Why are you trying to do that? Blah, blah, blah. So you criticise him when he plays backwards, you criticise him when he tries to pull something off. And then eventually, of course, he pulled off that pass into Zubimendi and we scored. And it was kind of, he didn't say anything about Ødegaard at that point. So I'm like, there is an element of, because we are groaning at everything, when it goes wrong, then it does seep into the players, and they do play more conservatively. So yeah, it's a tough one to get out of, but it is just going to take, I think, the big players stepping up with big moments. And I'm looking to people like Saka. And in a couple of games, it can turn around. You know, good performance against Leeds, a good performance against Chelsea at home in the Carabao Cup, go through to the final. Suddenly, everything looks rosy again.
Agreed.
It's been a difficult few weeks for Arsenal in terms of the Premier League, but we are still 4 points clear at the top. 7 points dropped in the last 3 games. I don't want to say that after the Manchester United game we're on track to blowing it, because I think that's way too knee-jerk. I think we've got that cushion for a reason, because we've been the most consistent side. We might have to use some of that cushion and lean into it a little bit as sort of the weeks go on and as we get towards that real business end of the season. But I'll start with you, James, this time on the title race in general. How confident are you still? Has what happened on Sunday impacted that in any way, or have you been able to kind of just put it to one side and move on?
It's a great question. I actually haven't really thought too much about the title race from a bigger perspective, because I'll tell you what, Villa have got me. That result against Newcastle, I thought, okay. And actually, their remaining games are quite nice. Yeah. Like I think they've got, I need to check it properly, but I think of Arsenal, City and themselves, I think they might have the nicer run. So you keep an eye on them. But obviously, they lost at home to Everton, and I think a few teams having those kind of results. It's so funny because we're sat here, we're visibly quite frustrated with the recent weeks, rightly so. I agree with everything that's been felt, but we are 4 points ahead at the top of the table, and that's testament to the good work that's come before. So if Arsenal can shake this off, they've had their bad moment. I think every team has it. I remember City in I think it was 18-19 when they went to the end with Liverpool. They lost 3 out of 4 games. Do you remember when Townsend scored that screamer for Palace, I think? So they had a bad patch and they were an unbelievable side. So it can happen. Put it to bed. But we need to make this not 4 games now. We need to respond. We need to book a place in the Carabao Cup final, have Wembley waiting and have that kind of thing coming for at some point in the season. I think if we can beat Wigan, suddenly into the 5th round of the FA Cup, things start to get a little bit more exciting in terms of that. So in terms of the title race, actually answer your question because I've rambled on. I still feel confident because City aren't doing enough to make me think that they're going to punish this for sure. They might do, but I'm just not convinced by them either.
Yeah, where are you on it, Rory?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I think in the media, the wider mainstream media, Arsenal fans are kind of, if you consume a lot of it, you are thrown back and forth by these insane sort of exaggerations and, you know, last week we're on for the treble, and at a minimum we should do the treble. Really, we should be doing the quadruple. But then a week later, it's like, oh, they're bottling it again, they're capitulating again. This is what Arsenal do. None of their attackers are good enough. And it's like it was one game between those. So I do think that constant kind of violent swinging back and forth doesn't help anybody. Yeah, and I do look at City, and you know, they've got 1 win in their last 5 Premier League games. That was at home to Wolves, who, as much as they look a little bit better recently, they are bottom of the table. And even then, City didn't actually create an overwhelming amount against Wolves. And so I don't think they've solved their issues. And so, yeah, I look at it and I kind of think, if we can just get even remotely back on track, I think we'll be all right. I think it will be a really low points season, and we've got the kind of depth to grind that out, I think, better than anyone. You spoke about Villa. I agree. To go to Turkey and win and then Newcastle and win is unbelievable. I saw this morning, though, Tielemans is out until probably March.
Oh, wow.
So that's McGinn out until the end of February, Tielemans out,
Fine.
Kamara out, which is brutal for them.
Yeah.
But that is where our depth is going to come in big. So, yeah, I think February will be a better month for us, not as many games. Again, I think even for us playing twice a week, you know, you almost had that real high of Inter, which was a bit unexpected because I didn't think the game mattered all that much. But because Gyökeres scored a great goal and you had that real high, then to come down to the low. And yeah, I just think it'll be nice in February to actually play a few less games and hopefully come out of February 4, 5, 6 points clear and we're in a good spot.
Could I ask you guys a question? Sorry to play host for a second.
No, go for it.
You sparked a thought for me there. When we've sort of managed to recover and go on great runs, we've actually been out of the other cups. Or maybe there's not been too much else to focus on. I wonder how much Arteta and his team are so meticulous on preparing for the opposition, and how much, while we are loving competing on all four fronts, and we should, does that get in the way a little bit? We went strong with Trossard and Saka starting against Inter Milan. Didn't necessarily need to win that game. So a lot of prep would have gone into that. Man United, on the other hand, would have a week on. Now, that's not an excuse. Obviously, I still expect us to win that game. But do you think there's an element of we're loving it, we want to compete on all four fronts? I'm sure Arteta wants to win every trophy he can. But is there a bit of a drawback in that sense for him a little bit?
I think there's a danger of him prioritising at a stage when we've got clearly a squad that should be spreading itself across multiple competitions. And I actually think sometimes when you're having a bad patch in the league, having that distraction of going to San Siro and winning,
I agree,
and bringing that feel-good factor back, I think it can benefit you. If you don't have the depth to do it, then it's a different story. And in previous years, we didn't. But this time around, I think with the volume of players we've got, we have a responsibility, for me, to go and fight on multiple fronts.
I completely agree.
But just on the title race as well, like City are not showing at the moment that they can go on that kind of run, but you know in the back of your mind that they could do it. And that's why I'm still a little bit nervous and anxious about it, and why I won't say, even when we were 7 points clear, that it was done, because there's that within them. With Aston Villa, I don't think Aston Villa have what it takes, but it's the fear of it being Unai Emery that makes it worse for me, honestly, because there's this thing that keeps happening every time we play them or we drop points to them, where people start to become really revisionist and say he should have stayed and he should have had more time. He's absolutely the right manager for Villa. He wasn't the right manager for Arsenal. That is fact. And that's my worry about them. I do wonder with him, does he get a little bit further in the Europa League, though, and go, right, this is my thing? And does he start to prioritise in a way that sees them drop off in the league? So that's part of the reason why I'm not as fearful of them still at this stage.
Yeah, I do think they've also gone through the season with, you know, they have a very clear identity, but a lot of teams hadn't really respected the level that they were. And it, actually, if you sit off against Villa and you crowd the box and the edge of the box, they struggle to break you down. We saw that with Everton. Palace did it well. And so I think as the season goes on, again, a lot of the teams that Villa will be playing against, similarly to us, will be playing once a week, plenty of time to prepare. I do think they'll start struggling there. And with City, to be fair, I really don't think City will go on a run. Like it's something I'm really confident of, is that I just don't see it from this team. And it's not, you know, obviously everyone says that they've done it in the past. We know they can do it. I don't know that this version of City can do it. And I've not seen that in the last 18 months. And I look at a lot of the players that they've lost that were so pivotal to those runs. Now I look at the squad and I'm not sure I see it. So I think our players need to have that confidence of, we are a better team. You look at even the way that we lost against United. There's no good way of losing a game, but I'd rather lose to two worldies that you can't do much about than the way that they got turned over by United the week before. So yeah, I think we should be more confident. That is what a lot of the kind of negativity, I get it, but I think, like I said, a couple of wins and it'll be straight back to, no, we are the best team in the league. Yeah, we may not play the most beautiful football, but it's effective and there's a reason that we're top.
Totally agree with that, but do City need to go on a run?
Well,
I wonder whether they could kind of get 3 wins and a draw, 2 wins, a defeat, 3 wins, another draw. That might be a run enough. And when you've got Haaland and Pep, I think they're capable of that.
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely capable. Like, even if it's not as good a run as you would have seen in the past, they're capable if we don't buck up our ideas.
Yeah, for sure.
If as long as we're okay, then there's nothing to worry about, really. It is January, and it's wild to me. Been doing this job for a good few years now, and this is probably the least I've talked about transfers.
Yeah, agreed.
And that is a testament, I suppose, to the work that we did in the summer. But one of the links that has been doing the rounds is one linking Arsenal with a move for Julian Alvarez. It would be, according to reports, around about an £80 million move. James, first of all, your thoughts on the player, and secondly, if we were to proceed with this, would it be an admission of the fact that we maybe signed the wrong striker in the summer?
Ooh, what a great question. There's so many angles to this. I think there's a need for a striker. I think Jesus goes. I know he spoke about wanting to renew, but I think he'll leave. I don't think Arsenal will offer him that. More because I don't really like talking about player wages, but I do think that might be a factor in it. Kai Havertz, if he can't prove his fitness, I think Kai Havertz, there'll be a lot of interest in him. I think a lot of coaches and a lot of clubs around the world really rate him, despite the divide amongst the Arsenal fan base and other football fans. If there's an opportunity, I think that might be something Arsenal do. And with Gyökeres, if it doesn't work, maybe we see Berta flip strikers quite quickly at Atletico Madrid. Would he do the same thing? So I don't think any one of the three we've got are guaranteed to stay. Therefore, there's room for an Alvarez to come in, especially a player of his quality. I worry whether Arteta's system ever really plays to getting the best out of strikers anyway. So that's one concern I've got. I rate the player a lot. He was good at Man City, very good. He's been great at Atletico Madrid. Obviously I'd love to see him at Arsenal. I don't know if it solves as much as people hope or think, because Jesus the other day, we asked him to be, after Inter Milan, looking really bright, drop into the pockets, link up play, and he really struggled to have any impact. So yes, I'm really excited about the player. I don't know how much it actually changes for us going forward. But yes, please sign him, Arsenal. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, again, I think he's a quality player, but I'm at the point where there are very few players on the planet, I think, that we could bring in and I would be like, they will definitely hit the ground running and revolutionise this attack. And even with Alvarez, he's not scored a league. He's scored one league goal since September in La Liga. He scored a couple in the Champions League, but he had a brilliant start to the season and has struggled to score goals since then. And I saw a list on Twitter earlier of, we should have gone and got someone like an Alvarez, a Leao, or a Rodrigo. Rodrigo's got 3 goals this season in all competitions. Leao's got, I think, 8, which is still fewer than Martinelli. And so I think I don't want to do too much of just constantly cycling through, well, this attacker will solve it, this attacker will solve it. I think there's a wider problem, not just at Arsenal, but within the Premier League, actually, of attacking players flourishing, and this is a way wider point for a longer podcast, but in terms of the Premier League quality has fallen, we don't get the best out of attacking players anymore across the Premier League. We don't see it. It's not as exciting. And I do think to an extent Arteta going down the route of very systematic, structured approach, I know I can create chances from every set piece, I kind of get it. And so an Alvarez would be great. It would be an exciting signing. Would I guarantee that he's going to come in and revolutionise the attack? I'm not so sure.
I think he's the halfway house between Jesus and Gyökeres, in that he can drop deep and get on the ball, and he's got that quality to come and play a bit of midfield as well. But I also think he's a great runner in behind. And I don't think Jesus is a great runner in behind, but he can do the dropping off bit. And with Gyökeres, he's a runner in behind, but he hasn't got the other side of the game. So the fact that he's that halfway house between the two makes him a really good fit. And I just think we're in a stage where in the past you might have looked at Julian Alvarez and said he's not your traditional big physical number 9. I don't think that those number 9s are what you need in the Premier League now. But there is a danger that you catch on to a trend too late. You make a shift towards that at some stage and then it changes again. And I think that's what we're dealing with in the Premier League. The constant tactical evolution of everybody is making life difficult for coaches and causing new headaches. Arteta built a team to deal with last season's headaches, and now there are new ones. And I think that can be said for a lot of coaches. Just very, very quickly as well, Ethan Nwaneri, since we last spoke, has completed his loan move to Marseille. He's already scored a goal there as well. I was against this, James. And right now, he'd be playing ahead of Odegaard and Eze for me. Is it better for the player, though, in the long run, do you think?
I was actually against it too, but a lot of Arsenal fans are really happy about it. So I think the pros are quite simple. You're going to play in a top league. You're going to play under a top manager. You're going to play for a side who are, at the right end of the table with some good players. So that's all tick, tick, tick. And you're going to be playing week in, week out. That's great. My bigger concern is I worry about whether, I'm going back to the Arteta conversation, but let's try not to do too much. I worry about whether Arteta loves players like Nwaneri, whether there's enough room for one Ødegaard. Maybe Ødegaard, but if Eze's going to be there, it's going to be off the left. Nwaneri, if you come on, you're coming on for Ødegaard. You're not going to come on with him. I just worry that, I grew up on Hleb, Rosicky, Arshavin, Cazorla, Ozil, players like that. I loved watching players like that. And it felt like Wenger, almost maybe too much, would do everything to get those players in the team. I feel like Arteta's very selective about how and when he uses those types of players. So I love the loan, but I would have kept him for this season because he's someone who can just slap it in the top corner when he fancies it, who can dribble past a player, but also because I just love players like him. And I do worry about whether Arteta leans towards those types of profiles, if I'm really honest.
Would you have let him go, Rory, or would you have kept hold of him?
Yeah, I'd have let him go purely based on the game time that he was getting. So whether or not I agreed with that game time, he wasn't getting it. Arteta didn't trust him, so I do think it was the right decision. And I think once we'd made that loan, if you wanted to be negative about it, you could, no matter what happened, if he wasn't playing in League and if he wasn't getting those minutes, it would be, we should never have sent him. If he was playing badly, it would be, it was a bad loan, he shouldn't have gone there. And if he's playing well, it's, well, he should be playing for us because he's playing well. So you can spin that whichever way you want. But I do think long term it will be better for him. There was always an argument that Saliba should have come back a year earlier than he did, but actually that extra year of guaranteed minutes and game time probably led to an even better version of him when he did come back. So yeah. It's happened now. And I do also think, again, I know a lot of people don't like Ødegaard, but if he had replaced Eze, for example, there would be huge questions then over the fact that we spent 70 million on Eze and how's Nwaneri replaced him. So yeah, at the end of the day, I just think the best thing for him now is to develop as much as he can. And I do think, actually, when he comes back, I think Arteta will integrate him far better than he has done so far.
I don't doubt it's the best thing for him. I don't doubt that it's a good choice of club for him to go out on loan. It's just, are we going to be sitting here at the end of the season saying we could have done with Ethan Nwaneri? That's my only thing about it. Arsenal take on Kairat Almaty in the Champions League. It's our final Champions League game of the league phase. We're top, looking comfortable. Is this, Rory, effectively a bit of a training session? Do you expect multiple changes?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen people putting out lineups of Gunnosaurus in goal and Arteta in midfield, but I actually think it is one of those where, for some of those players that have been fringe players a little bit, that could also do with a bit of a confidence booster, I think we'll put out. I mean, we can't put out a terrible team just on the amount of quality that we've got. So an opportunity for Kai Havertz to start the game, I think. I'd love to see Marley Salmon come in. It's a real shame Max Dalman's not going to be fit for it, I don't think. But yeah, it will be a decent team. Norgard should play the full 90. Obviously, Marino and Rice are suspended. And yeah, I mean, I would assume that we go and win the game. I think a lot of us will probably be focused elsewhere on the other games that are happening to see who we're likely to get in the next round, and also hoping that City finish outside the top 8. But yeah, for us, it's just, we've done all the hard work. Absolutely.
What about you, James? You looking forward to seeing hopefully a bit of a goal fest here?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the other players get more regular minutes. Arsenal have done an amazing job in the Champions League, and we've done a very good job in the Premier League and across all 4 competitions. We can be proud. But the work in the Champions League, we've made it look so easy, and that's included Atletico, Bayern, a trip to Inter Milan, some of those other awkward away trips you can talk about. You can slip up at any point because we've seen every other team do it. Arsenal have been perfect. I would actually like us to end on 8 wins out of 8, just to send a bit of a message that we absolutely walked this phase of the Champions League and to give us confidence for the coming rounds. But ultimately, it's a case of rotate. I want to see them looking good. Madueke, Eze, Havertz if he starts, Norgard, Marino, Mosquera, Nkapie. Hopefully Calafiori gets some minutes. Ben White, because I didn't like that Ben White cameo the other day. I hope all those players come in. Martinelli come in and look really bright and send a bit of a message. And the Emirates just has fun, because how often, I don't know about you, I watch every Arsenal game. Honestly, I don't know if I enjoy it till we're 3-0 up. I watch it with a tension, with a stress, with a, this is a big one. Every game, it's a big one. Leeds is a big one. Whoever we've got at home, it's a big one. This is one of those where actually, hopefully, everyone can just have a bit of fun at the Emirates, enjoy it. That's no disrespect to Kairat. It's just a reflection of the great position we put ourselves in the Champions League. So great work in Europe. Keep it moving. Enjoy the night.
I think if I'm an attacking player, whether I'm tired from the weekend or not, I want to play in this game. When I was playing, and it wasn't obviously to this level, when we used to face the bottom team in the league, as a striker, I was rubbing my hands together. It was exactly the game I wanted. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if I was going through a bit of a bad patch, that was the kind of game that would hopefully kickstart you and get you going again. But I mean, the wider point on the Champions League, Rory, is that we're finding it really easy versus what we're finding in the Premier League.
Yep.
It's not because the Champions League sides are weaker than some of the Premier League sides we're facing. So what is it for you that seems to make such a big difference in terms of our performances?
I think there's a couple of... One is the style. So it's, you look at Spurs' ability to perform in Europe this season. They're fifth, comfortably beat Dortmund to a second in the Bundesliga, but that's because Dortmund came onto them, which so few teams in the Premier League now do. And I do think the floor of the Premier League is the highest it's ever been in terms of every team has the ability to defend really well with a structure. So that makes it more difficult to break teams down. But I also think we do play with a freedom in the Champions League where the opening set of games, and it feels like it within fans as well, and it's even been a criticism of the new format, is that the opening games feel very much like there's no jeopardy whatsoever, which I think benefits us. And then because we platformed ourselves so well with 4 wins from 4, 5 wins from 5, we've then gone into the final games with, we go away to Inter, and we don't need to win the game. So we can have fun. And so, I think there's a big difference in just the mentality of the team, which is nice.
And for these teams, James, when they come up against you, if they're top dogs in their leagues, it must be very difficult for them to go, right, we're not playing our normal game today. We're going to lock down and sit in deep because that's what Arsenal don't like. No, you go to San Siro, there's 80,000 Inter fans. They want to see you play on the front foot, don't they? So it's a mentality thing as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely something about these other sides having a degree of pride, and it's probably not just pride. It's week in, week out. They're playing a certain style of football. Yeah. So why would they just flip it for the midweek game when they've got to play to their strengths? And that suits Arsenal.
We've got Leeds away at the weekend. Not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be full of atmosphere. Just something that James touched on there that I want to build on a little bit. You said that against Bayern, we ran all over teams. Does that make you feel like in the Premier League, we should go back to that? That we should be playing Merino, that it should be Rice and Zubimendi, and then, all right, if Eze wants to be that second 10 or whatever, and that we need to prioritise the physicality again, which is something that I wanted us to move away from a little bit. But now we've got to that point. Do we need to go back to basics, strip it back? Is that how you'd approach Leeds?
I think so. I think Leeds will take the game to us because they're feeling really confident. They're playing some great football. Ellen Road will be loud. I can see it suiting Arsenal a little bit more in terms of it being there being space to run into, letting the physicality try to take over a little bit, maybe go from back to front a little bit quicker, whereas I don't think United allowed that. I don't think Liverpool allowed that. I don't think Forest allowed that. So to a degree, that might suit us a little bit. But then that kind of plays to Gyökeres a little bit. If it's that kind of game, I think that's where he's helped a little bit more. I would just simply go for Marino and Eze for what we said earlier, that it's less the physicality, it's more that they've just been the better partnership and had a better understanding. But I think it's more, can Arteta release the handbrake a little bit and say, we've come through a really busy Christmas and January. I mean, the amount of games we played from the end of November, that last international break, to now has been obscene. So much football, and a lot of them big games, a lot of them high intensity. So I can understand why maybe the intensity hasn't been there every game. But they'll bring it, Leeds, so you've got to match them. So maybe just try to take the game to them, make it a little bit more basketball, and trust Saliba and Gabriel and your individuals to win their battles and get you through. I'd like to see something that takes a bit more risk, because a point for me will feel as bad as a defeat, if I'm really honest. And we've got the cushion there, so have a go.
Yeah, absolutely. How would you approach it, Rory? I know we've got this Kairat game in between, so it's a little bit difficult, but Rice and Marino are both out of that game, which means that you wouldn't be asking them to play twice in quick succession. Yep. Does that make them... I know Rice is a nailed-on starter anyway, but does that put Marino into the equation?
Yeah, I think so. Unless, which I don't think he will be, Havertz was ready to start. I do think Marino, and I think Eze. And I think when you play with Eze, you have to accept that maybe the defensive side of the game isn't quite going to be there. And so... Listen, you lean on Declan Rice, who's one of the best sixes in the world, albeit he's been playing as an 8 for us and we've had him getting forwards more. But I don't think he's scoring enough or creating enough opportunities for us in those attacking moments anyway to justify not having an Eze who, if you leave him in those pockets, if you let him float around Marino, he will pick up the ball, he will have opportunities, he will create problems. So I would be more than happy to see us go back to that, at the very least until Calafiori's ready to start and Havertz is ready to start. So yeah, I think the real issue will be if we do and we go with what we've seen for the last couple of weeks, and it doesn't work again. Leeds have only conceded more than once in their last 9 games. They're not conceding many goals. So I think we have to take it to them. And if we don't, I do think fans will start questioning the kind of ambition.
That's all we've got time for on today's Inside Gooners. Thanks for your company, and a massive thanks to Rory, talkSPORT, and the brilliant James Bayliss as well. We'll see you all on the next one. Cheers.